What up, Jippers? We are back, and today I have got my trusty little Nintendo Switch with me because I have been playing a game recently that I have absolutely fallen in love with, and I just had to jump on here to make a video talking about my excitement for this game, me finding this game with no expectations going in, and just coming out having the best time ever. And of course, as you know from the title, that game is Dragon Quest XI. I've got the definitive version here on the Nintendo Switch. I picked this up a couple of months ago. It is also out on PS4, Windows, and there's even a 3DS version, which is obviously kind of a cut down mini version rather than this full experience that I've had and I've been playing here. But yeah, this game is absolutely the game that has come out of nowhere and made me a die-hard fan of the Dragon Quest series. I am a Dragon Quest believer. This is the first Dragon Quest game that I have ever played in my entire life, and after playing this, I really do feel like I have just been missing out on something magical for the last 30 odd years that they've been making games, and I've frankly just been completely ignoring them. So yeah, hopefully some of you will enjoy hearing me just kind of talk about my excitement and my love for this game, my first impressions and thoughts, and why it's really grabbed me in the way that it has. And for some of you, this might be useful if you've been thinking about the game, or if you haven't heard of it at all. Dragon Quest XI is definitely a game that I can wholeheartedly recommend for anyone out there who just wants a fantastic and magical adventure, because that is what this game has been for me over the last couple of weeks. Now, for those of you that don't know, Dragon Quest is your kind of traditional RPG game. It is developed by Square Enix, and it does have a huge die-hard following and fan base, but for whatever reason, it's just always been one that I've kind of passed up on. You've had the RPGs like Skyrim and The Witcher and those kind of things that I've played, even things like Ni no Kuni that have grabbed my attention and I've jumped on, but for whatever reason, Dragon Quest has kind of sat there in the background as a game that I've heard of, I've sort of known about, but never really delved too much into. And I think a lot of people are in a similar sort of situation. So hopefully after that video, I can do my little bit to try and change that, at least for some of you out there. Now, I did pick up the definitive edition on the Nintendo Switch. It is slightly different to the one that's on Windows and PS4. And from what I can tell, I think this is pretty much the recommended way to play the game. If you've got the option to play it on any system, if you've got the Switch, the PS4 and PC, I would strongly suggest you pick it up on the Switch, because there are a few little tweaks and changes on the Switch version that make it that little bit better. And honestly, just playing it on this tiny little screen, like this huge magical world, being able to explore it on the go and seeing it look really kind of deep and vibrant on the Switch screen is just... it's just one of those experiences that for me is like a system seller for the Switch. It's my favourite game on the Switch, and I've played most of the kind of popular games that the Switch has to offer. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents. The Switch version, it basically has a few cool things, like you can play through the entire game with the wonderful new 3D modern graphic style that we all kind of have come to expect at this point, but you can also switch back to the really classic 2D RPG style. I think you can actually see a bit of that on the back of the case here. But yeah, essentially, if you're an old school RPG fan, you'll recognize that retro 2D RPG style in the background. Pretty nostalgic for a lot of people, but you can actually play through the entire game like that. And it's, I don't know, that was just a really neat little touch, and it seems to fit really nicely with the Nintendo Switch, which I guess you kind of normally associate Nintendo with that more classic, cut down, less flashy style of graphics. But yeah, the full 3D kind of mode is what I've been playing in most of the time. I have dabbled and switched across between the two, but the world, the setting, the graphics, the visuals, the art style in this game, it's just absolutely charming. There's something about the way that the world has been built in this game that grabbed me straight off the bat. The art style is super bright and vibrant, and just everything is fun to explore, you know, the kind of magical forests and open fields, the really cool kind of medieval-ish fantasy-inspired cities that you visit and the towns. Everything about this world is 100% the kind of thing that I personally love, and there's so much to kind of do and explore. This game, by the way, is easily kind of 80 to 100 hours plus. If you want to do everything, if you want to find all of the little treasures and hidden secrets and just explore, I spend loads of time just kind of wandering around, fighting the enemies out in the wilderness and just kind of looking around and admiring the views and taking screenshots on my little Switch, which I haven't even figured out how to get them off of the Switch, so I'll probably never look at those pictures again. But it's that kind of world. Like, I'm walking around in it and I want to just stop and I want to take a picture of this awesome waterfall that I see, or this cool forest that I'm looking at, or this cool ancient building or ruin. There's just so many moments that make you just stop and go, wow, this is absolutely magical and beautiful. And that's, I think, what has kind of really grabbed me and why I'm loving it so much. Now, I don't want to give too much away about the game, so I'm not going to go into any like major spoilers or anything like that to do with the story or what kind of happens or some of the cool places and things that you find. But there are just a kind of few headings that I want to talk through about some of the stuff in the game that I personally love. And the first of those, obviously, you've kind of heard me gushing about it already, is the world, is the setting. It's very much fantasy, medieval inspired kind of style. So if you're kind of Dungeons and Dragons, those kind of settings that you'd imagine, or kind of classic RPGs, things like Oblivion and Skyrim, but with a bit more fun, light-hearted, vibrant brightness. Something like Breath of the Wild or Ni no Kuni, that kind of bright, fun, huge, expansive world is what you get with this game. And the whole thing is just put together so well. It's never the same. Kind of no two areas in the game feel the same. Like, one minute you'll be in this cool, beautiful, open field, wilderness, foresty type area with waterfalls and mountains. And then the next minute you'll be off to some crazy desert oasis town that's been set up with like beautiful, luxurious palaces and little outhouses and villages, all of that kind of stuff. There's just loads of different areas with totally different scenery and settings, but all of it has that kind of Dragon Quest charm, which is weird to say because this is my first Dragon Quest game, but there's something about the Dragon Quest lore and mythos and world. It's just really good fun to explore and pleasant to kind of wander around and get lost in. So yeah, the world absolutely is wonderfully crafted. It's not a fully open world game with kind of persistent areas. There's like an overworld map. So if you've played a lot of old school RPG games, you'll probably have seen the kind of thing that I'm talking about. But there is like this huge world and you kind of go from section to section. And then when you get into one of those sections, it kind of opens up and you can explore freely and do whatever you want, but then there will be like a loading screen if you go to a completely different area, that kind of thing. So yeah, huge open world, split into kind of regions or segments. That's the way it's structured, and it all fits together really nicely and is a lot of fun to explore. So yeah, the world setting, magical, really enjoyed it. Cannot recommend it enough to anyone who loves that style or genre of kind of fantasy medieval-ish world setting. Then there's the combat system. The combat system is actually really fun. So it is your kind of traditional turn-based RPG game. Don't need to kind of explain too much what that is. You've got your set list of attacks and spells and weapons that you can use. You upgrade them as you play through the game and progress and get new skills and new party members joining your group. And then you can kind of go through and select as you're fighting each turn what you want to do against that particular enemy. You'll pull off that move, then they'll attack back, and so on and so forth. And as you get through the game, you add new party members, and you end up with about 4, I think, in total, that are kind of in your little team. Now, the way I play the game, and you don't have to do this, you can kind of set different kind of auto modes to put your party members on. So when I'm playing, I take full control of the main character, and I choose all the moves and spells, and whether I want to heal or use items with that main character. I do all of that myself, and then I've got all of the other characters kind of set with different priorities, but they'll auto do their own moves. So how I have one of them set to like prioritize healing, one of them to be mixed balance, one of them to kind of focus on doing damage, and then for the most part I just let them get on with it in combat and I just focus on me. If you are a bit more kind of advanced and experienced with these turn-based RPGs, you might want to take control of all of them and do it all super quickly, but I just like focusing on the one character, and then for the most part the AI works brilliantly. I've not had any trouble playing it that way. You can kind of speed up the combat as well. I know that a lot of people, when they're playing through these kind of games, you feel like sometimes it gets a bit grindy. If you do get to that point, you can just turn the speed up in the combat to like ultra fast and basically skip through the combat super quick if you're just trying to level up for a little bit but you want to kind of get onto the next area. So it's, yeah, really easy, really simple to get into, but still pretty deep and complex once you get into it if you want to properly explore it and really kind of get the most out of the tactics. And it kind of gently builds as you go through. So I've gone into it mostly playing Western RPGs like Skyrim or Oblivion, that kind of thing, where you just like whack stuff. This is very much kind of a bit more tactical than that. You have to think about whether you're going to use a spell, whether it's weak or strong against a certain type of enemy, whether you want to use a move, but then you've got to worry about your mana as well, and then you've got special attacks. All of that stuff's there, but it slowly layers up as you're playing through it, so it's really easy to understand. And there wasn't really any point that I was like lost, or I had to look up how to do something, or I felt like it was all a bit too much. And I have had that with some games in the past, like some of the Final Fantasy games. I've felt a bit like, whoa, this is a bit too much, a bit too overwhelmed. But this is really easy to get into, even if you kind of want to play it more casually and just focus on the adventure and the fun and exploring and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that all works really well. There is a leveling system, so you kind of level up your skills and different types of weapons for each of your party members as you go. And the cool thing with this is if you feel like you've done that wrong, or you want to change, or you want to get one of your party members to stop using a sword and you want to start using a boomerang, and you've only just decided that like 30 hours into the game, it does just let you reallocate all of those skill points. So you don't have to be like, oh no, I've done it all wrong. You don't have to go and find a specific item or person to reset things. You can just do it at any time. So if you want to switch and try out a different style, you can just do that on the fly. Really easy, really simple, and that whole system just works perfectly for someone like me who just wants to enjoy a fun, big adventure game and kind of get lost in it and not worry too much about have I done every little kind of skill min-maxing perfectly or anything like that. So yeah. And one of the other really cool things about the combat in this game is that it actually lets you take control of your character. So it is turn-based like a traditional RPG, but there's a mode that lets you just run around with your character while you're in the battles. So it almost feels like it's a fully real-time action RPG, but you're still doing the kind of select and the attack that you want to do. If you played Ni no Kuni, it's very similar to that. So you kind of have your character, you're running around on the screen, you select the attacks you want to do, and you have to kind of wait for that attack to hit and them to attack back. But all of the time while that's going on, you can just be like running around, and it feels a lot more immersive to me than just standing there and pressing attack and then waiting for your attack to happen and then waiting for them to do theirs and then attacking back. It feels a lot more fluid and a lot more fun that way for me. But of course, you don't have to do that if you just want the traditional turn-based stuff that you're used to with this kind of RPG, I guess. So yeah, I thought that was a nice touch, and I hope more RPG games include that kind of thing going forward, because it's something that makes it feel a bit more, I don't know, a bit more fun and lively to me when you're in combat. Now, the music is another thing that I did want to very briefly mention in this game. It is absolutely classic. I've got a feeling it's going to be one of those kind of soundtracks that if you play this game, you're still going to be thinking about it, or you're still going to recognize the kind of little jingles and the little tones and melodies like years later on down the line, kind of like the Zelda series or something like that. It just really gets stuck in your head, like the battle music and the overworld music, and whenever something interesting happens, there's always like a cool little soundtrack to go with it. There's so many moments in the game I'll just be sitting there kind of mindlessly playing away on my Switch, and I'll just be like humming along to the background music, and I'm like, it really gets stuck in your head. It's really fun. And the cool thing about the Switch version is they did actually redo the whole soundtrack, so it's like a fully orchestral soundtrack. I've listened to some of the music in the other versions just to kind of see the difference. It's still the same kind of melodies and tunes, and it's really fun. It just obviously sounds that little bit more special when it's done with a full live orchestra performing it, which is what the Switch version has. So another reason why the Switch version is a little bit better, but certainly not something that would make you like not want to play the other versions. But yeah, music really, really good. And then there's the story. I really want to kind of be careful about this. I haven't completed the game yet. I'm probably about 45 hours in, and I'm absolutely freaking loving it. Every time I put the game down at the minute, I'm like, when is the next time I'm going to get to play it? And it's been quite a while since I've had that with any game. I'm pretty busy in my real life, so I never have time to like complete a game in one sitting anymore, which is a real shame. But this is very much the kind of game that I would, if I could, just spend a week or 2 weeks solid just playing it non-stop and having the absolute best time. It's, you know, it is like that first time you played something like Oblivion or Skyrim. You know, if you've played those kind of games where you just don't want to do anything else but that, you get so into it, so immersed into the world and the setting and leveling up your character and progressing, that it's like you could quite happily do that and nothing else for hours and hours and hours straight. And that's exactly what this game has done for me. So that's kind of the main reason that I just wanted to come on, make a video talking about it. I'm sure it's like really old news at this point. Some of you probably already played this game, some of you probably aren't interested in these kind of games at all, but for me, it's been a really special experience. So I wanted to come on and just talk briefly about it. But yeah, the story, I won't spoil it, but I guess it's nothing kind of super out there. You've never left the village, you've never gone and seen the world, you don't have any real aspirations to do that. And then circumstances transpire, and it turns out that you're the sort of kind of cliched chosen one character, and then you kind of get bumbled into this crazy adventure. And that's kind of how it all unfolds, and then you meet other cool characters with their own little interesting stories and backgrounds, and you all end up kind of coming together to save the world, basically, is what kind of transpires. So yeah, it's nothing kind of groundbreaking in terms of story, but it's done really, really well. And the characters, there's something really fun and playful about all of the characters in the stories. So there's a lot of times in the game where something happens, or like a character will do something or say something in a cutscene, and it will just have me like laughing out loud in hysterics because it's just really funny. And sometimes that will happen like at quite a serious moment. So something will be happening, there'll be this big epic battle or this big epic part of the adventure, and they'll play this really cool cutscene and it's really intense and you're getting really into it, and then one of your like little knucklehead companions will just do something super goofy, and it will be, yeah, it just makes me laugh a lot. And that's kind of one of the key things about the story that I love. It's really lighthearted and really fun, but it still does a good job of like building up the interest, and there are some pretty intense moments in there, especially with some of the battles and bosses and things. So yeah, it's a really nice, heartwarming story, and I think most people will enjoy it, even if it's not something that you're going to be kind of absolutely blown away by. But yeah, so that is Dragon Quest XI. That is definitely kind of my favorite new game or new find that I've come across recently. Every now and again you'll stumble on a game that you go into without really expecting too much. You know, maybe you see it and you think, that looks kind of cool, I'll give it a try, and then it is absolutely been one of those moments where it just blows me away completely. And I really do feel like, what the heck have I been doing not paying attention to Dragon Quest for all these years? And that's really exciting because there are so many Dragon Quest games out there. I'm sure some of them by this point aren't going to be that fun to play now, they won't have aged well or whatever, but I'm definitely going to go back and play some of the more recent ones, and probably some of the kind of classics that fans of the series kind of still talk about, because it is one of those kind of series that does have those standout games that people are still talking about years later, like Zelda or something like that, or the Pokemon series. You know, there are still these die-hard fans that have always been in love with this entry in the series and still talk about it and still want a remake of it today. So yes, I am very much a newly converted die-hard fan of the Dragon Quest series. I really, honestly, I know I've said it 1,000 times, I cannot recommend this game enough. Definitely go out and at least give it a try. If you have the Switch, there's like a demo that you can download for free, and it lets you play for like 10 hours or something, like just fully explore the game for like a number of hours. It's really big, and then at the end of that, if you do like it, you can just buy the game and your progress carries over. So if you've got the Switch especially, there is no reason not to give this a try. And if you do watch this video and then go out and try it, let me know what you think. If you have played it or you're a fan of the Dragon Quest series, definitely tell me what your thoughts are on it, and maybe give me some recommendations for which Dragon Quest game I should try next, given that this has been the first one I've ever played. What would be a good starting point for me to kind of get more into the series overall? But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed me blabbering on about my love for Dragon Quest XI and how it has made me fall in love with the series overall. Take care, guys, and peace.